In a devastating escalation of violence, more than 400 Palestinians have been killed and scores injured in extensive Israeli airstrikes on Gaza. This latest round of violence has drawn international condemnation and raised urgent questions about the ongoing conflict between Israel and Palestine. But what led to this escalation? What are the immediate and long-term consequences of these airstrikes? And what are the broader implications for peace and stability in the region? Let us dive deep into the details, explore the historical context, and analyze the multifaceted implications of this tragic event. To understand the significance of the recent airstrikes, it is essential to first examine the context of the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. The conflict, which dates back to the mid-20th century, is rooted in competing national aspirations and territorial claims. The establishment of the State of Israel in 1948 led to the displacement of hundreds of thousands of Palestinians, an event known as the Nakba, or catastrophe, in Palestinian history. Since then, the region has experienced multiple wars, uprisings, and peace efforts, but a lasting resolution has remained elusive. The Gaza Strip, a small but densely populated territory, has been a focal point of the conflict. Governed by Hamas since 2007, Gaza has been under an Israeli-Egyptian blockade, severely restricting the movement of people and goods and contributing to a humanitarian crisis. The recent escalation in violence must be understood within this broader context. Tensions have been high for months with clashes in Jerusalem, the West Bank, and Gaza. The situation has been exacerbated by political instability in Israel, the expansion of Israeli settlements, and the lack of progress in peace negotiations. The recent airstrikes on Gaza were triggered by a series of events that escalated tensions between Israel and Hamas. The immediate catalyst was a wave of violence in Jerusalem, where clashes between Israeli police and Palestinian protesters erupted over the eviction of Palestinian families from the Sheikh Jarrah neighborhood. The situation was further inflamed by Israeli police raids on the Al-Aqsa mosque compound, one of the holiest sites in Islam, during the holy month of Ramadan. In response to these events, Hamas and other Palestinian militant groups in Gaza launched rocket attacks into Israel. Israel, in turn, responded with airstrikes targeting Hamas infrastructure, including military sites, weapons depots, and the homes of Hamas leaders. The airstrikes have been some of the most extensive in recent years, resulting in significant casualties and widespread destruction in Gaza. The human cost of the airstrikes has been staggering. More than 400 Palestinians have been killed, including many civilians, women, and children. Scores more have been injured, overwhelming Gaza's already strained healthcare system. The airstrikes have also caused extensive damage to infrastructure, including homes, schools, hospitals, and essential services such as water and electricity. The impact on the civilian population has been devastating. Many families have been displaced, and the psychological toll on survivors, particularly children, is profound. The destruction of critical infrastructure has further exacerbated the humanitarian crisis in Gaza, where access to basic necessities such as food, water, and medical care is already severely limited. The recent airstrikes have drawn widespread condemnation from the international community. The United Nations, the European Union, and numerous countries have called for an immediate ceasefire and a return to dialogue. However, the situation is complicated by the differing positions of key players in the region and the broader geopolitical dynamics. For Israel, the airstrikes are seen as a necessary response to the rocket attacks from Gaza and a demonstration of its commitment to protecting its citizens. However, the high civilian casualties and the destruction in Gaza have raised concerns about the proportionality of the response and the potential for further escalation. For Hamas, the rocket attacks are seen as a way to assert its role as a defender of Palestinian rights and to draw international attention to the plight of Gaza. However, the Group's tactics have also been criticized for putting civilians at risk and undermining efforts to achieve a peaceful resolution to the conflict. The broader implications of the airstrikes are significant. The violence has the potential to destabilize the region further and to undermine efforts to achieve a two-state solution. It also highlights the urgent need for a renewed focus on diplomacy and conflict resolution, as well as addressing the root causes of the conflict, including the blockade of Gaza and the expansion of Israeli settlements. While the recent airstrikes have been widely condemned, it is important to consider all sides of the story before drawing conclusions. On the one hand, the airstrikes represent a significant escalation of violence and have resulted in a high number of civilian casualties. The destruction in Gaza has exacerbated an already dire humanitarian situation and has raised concerns about the proportionality of Israel's response. On the other hand, Israel argues that the airstrikes are a necessary response to the rocket attacks from Gaza and a demonstration of its commitment to protecting its citizens. The Israeli government has also accused Hamas of using civilians as human shields and of deliberately targeting Israeli population centers. It is also worth noting that the situation is complicated by the broader geopolitical dynamics of the region. The Israeli-Palestinian conflict is deeply intertwined with the interests and actions of other regional and global powers, including the United States, Iran, and various Arab states. The recent airstrikes must be understood within this broader context, with a focus on promoting stability and reducing the risk of further escalation. The international community has a critical role to play in addressing the recent escalation of violence. The United Nations, the European Union, and numerous countries have called for an immediate ceasefire and a return to dialogue. However, achieving a lasting resolution to the conflict will require more than just calls for peace. The international community must also address the root causes of the conflict, including the blockade of Gaza, the expansion of Israeli settlements, and the lack of progress in peace negotiations. This will require a renewed focus on diplomacy and conflict resolution, as well as addressing the humanitarian needs of the Palestinian population. At the same time, the international community must also hold all parties accountable for their actions. This includes ensuring that violations of international law, including the targeting of civilians and the use of disproportionate force, are investigated and addressed. The recent airstrikes highlight the urgent need for a comprehensive and inclusive approach to peace and stability in the region. As we reflect on the recent airstrikes and their devastating impact, several questions come to mind. What do you think about the escalation of violence in Gaza? Do you believe that the airstrikes are a necessary response to the rocket attacks, or do they represent a disproportionate use of force? How do you think the international community should respond to this crisis? We would love to hear your thoughts on this topic. Please leave a comment below and share your perspective. Do you believe that a lasting resolution to the Israeli-Palestinian conflict is possible? What steps do you think are necessary to achieve peace and stability in the region? Let us know what you think. If you found this analysis insightful, please give this video a thumbs up and share it with your friends and family. Your support helps us continue creating in-depth content on current issues and news from around the globe. Do not forget to subscribe to Breaking Bulletin for more thought-provoking discussions and documentaries. We also encourage you to leave a comment with your thoughts on this topic. Do you believe that the international community is doing enough to address the crisis in Gaza? How do you think the situation can be resolved? Your feedback is invaluable to us, and we look forward to reading your comments. The recent airstrikes on Gaza represent a tragic escalation of violence with far-reaching implications for the region and beyond. The high number of civilian casualties and the extensive destruction in Gaza highlight the urgent need for a renewed focus on diplomacy and conflict resolution. The international community must play a critical role in addressing the root causes of the conflict and promoting stability and peace in the region. As we reflect on this devastating event, it is essential to remember the human cost of the conflict and the urgent need for a comprehensive and inclusive approach to peace and stability. The recent airstrikes are a stark reminder of the challenges and complexities of the Israeli-Palestinian conflict and the importance of addressing the root causes of the violence. Thank you for watching Breaking Bulletin. Stay informed, stay curious, and stay engaged. Until next time, take care.